Man, so what we've got coming up here is really, really, really exciting news for award travel enthusiasts, man. We can use our points to somewhere that we had not been able to use them before. It looks like this is going to be coming up pretty soon.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. Today is Wednesday, June 22nd. I'm Erik here in Barcelona, Spain, checking in with AJ in Madrid, Spain. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about some news and updates from around the travel hacking world and having a very interesting interview with Idahosa Ness from Mimic Method. Last time he was on the show was over 100 episodes ago, and he's here in Barcelona as well. So I had a chance to talk with Idahosa in person. Really looking forward to sharing that with all of you listeners out there. AJ, how's it going in Madrid, man?
It's going well, man. I got over here, and the transportation means we normally don't talk about. I took the train from Barcelona to Madrid, but it was a nice experience. I remember we were looking it up yesterday. It gets up to like 220 miles an hour, so it's pretty quick. It's under 3 hours from Barcelona to Madrid, and driving would be like six and a half hours or something like that. But first impressions of Madrid are good. I still haven't seen enough to really talk about it like I know anything about it. But man, I'm excited to hear this stuff with Idahosa too. He's an interesting guy. I envy that you got to interview him.
Yeah, he's come a really long ways, and I can't wait to see what happens with Mimic Method, because if I had a bunch of money to bet, I would put it all on Idahosa becoming a major player with the Mimic Method in the language learning market. He's just on to something that's totally different, totally revolutionary, just throws away all the crap that people hate about language learning with grammar and repetition and memorization and learning a bunch of obscure old style things that don't help you talk to people. So it was very cool to catch up and just kind of see the contrast between where he was last time we checked in. I mean, I saw him in person maybe a year ago, but the last time we really got to like jam out and have like a mastermind session together was quite a while back. And I remember at the time, we were both kind of talking about goals, and it's just really exciting to see, that in terms of like his revenue goals and his growth of the company and building a team, he's really executed well on what he set out to do, back a year ago when we were working in Ho Chi Minh. So definitely a cool interview, really worth exploring. And I think I learned some new stuff also just talking with him last night about some of his processes and some of the stuff that's worked for him. I think I've got some cool stuff that I can share with you as well about how we can be more effective. Especially, we talk a little bit today about how he's managing his team and sort of transitioning between periods of time that they're remote and periods of time that they're all working together. They're going to Budapest to work together, and tons of parallels with what we're doing here in Barcelona. We've got Jake, one of our teammates, coming from the United States tomorrow morning and getting into Barcelona to spend 2 weeks with AJ and George and I. And it was just, really interesting to kind of hear and see that he had some of the same struggles with keeping things organized, setting a direction and actually having everybody kind of execute on that path, and how much of an advantage there can be to spending some extended time together with your core people to really figure out where the ship's going to go, and then set everybody to work on doing their part to make it happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It doesn't surprise me that things are going really well for him. It's he started off as just a one-man show, solopreneur, and that's a really difficult thing to do, and it takes it takes a lot of discipline and grit to kind of persevere through the early stages of that. All right, man. Well, who are show notes today? Is it /Mimic, abroaders.com/Mimic?
Yeah, in honor of the Mimic Method.
In honor of the Mimic.
It is abroaders.com/Mimic. We're going to post notes from our news and updates section here. We got a couple of interesting things to share with you. In particular, a couple deals for buying points, a new route from Singapore to the U.S. that I'm very excited about, and also a couple of award sale opportunities. I guess one big award sale opportunity, and a new place that you used to not be able to use points, and now you can. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, so the first one we've got here is AA is selling miles at 10% off, plus up to, excuse me, they're selling them at 10% off, and there's up to a 100,000 point bonus. So once again, before we get too much into this, before anyone gets excited, if you are going to buy miles, make sure you have a plan to use them. But how the math works on this is if you maxed out this promotion, you would receive a total of 250,000 miles, and that would cost you about $4,300, which brings things to about 1.72 cents per mile, which is a pretty good deal, but you're also sitting on a lot of points, and that was a lot of money up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about it in the context of trips for a second. Like $4,300 sounds like a lot of money to most people. However, if you've got like a series of, let's say, one-way tickets and you really want to book them in business class, 50,000 miles is enough to go from the U.S. to South America. So, and it's often enough to go from the U.S. to Europe if you catch the right award availability, or even the U.S. to Asia. I think it's a little bit more in business class now, but roughly speaking, let's say you've got a few points already in your American account, you could potentially get 5 one-way segments. So something like U.S. to Brazil to the U.S. to Asia to Europe would be possible in business class. And there's just no way you're going to book an itinerary like that all in business with cash. So there's definitely opportunities. Like you said, not something to go out and just buy. And it is, unfortunately, with the structure of the bonus, like 10% off is nothing to write home about. So you can kind of ignore that. I mean, certainly better than 0% off, but the purchase discount isn't the big deal. The deal is that you get some bonus miles. And really, it doesn't kick in and start being super valuable until you get up into like where you're spending at least $2,000 on buying points. So this is much more of an all or nothing kind of deal, specifically more valuable to people that have quite a bit of business class travel coming up, or maybe just, I guess I could see expensive one-way routes being a possible way to get some value out of this too.
Yeah, I mean, even if you did the math, I mean, even going to South America in economy class would be worth it. I mean, if you price out trips to like Argentina, it's really difficult to find a return flight, a round trip for under $1,000. So
yeah, I agree. I think, and like you said, like there's still definitely some spots that you can go in South America for 20,000 miles one way, and the rest is 30. So depending on how you structure that, you could get 2 of those for a round trip for 50 or 60,000 miles. There's definitely wins to have. If you are interested in checking this out, the available time frame here, I think you have to buy these points by July 8th. So that's something to keep in mind. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that American Airlines sells their miles through their own portal. You're going to know, like if you go get directed to points.com, which is where a lot of the airlines sell their miles, you're not going to get a bonus on any card that offers a bonus for travel or a bonus for purchases from airlines. But I think American processes their own payments, which means if you have the Chase Sapphire card, you could put that purchase on there and get double miles. If you've got the Amex Business Gold or the Amex Personal Gold card, you can get 3x if you've chosen airfare as your 3x category. So there's some ways on top of this to not only get some valuable points, but also, if you're going to spend $3 or $4,000, try and do it in a 2x or 3x category and get an extra 8 to 10,000 points by doing it that way as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Next up, we've got Singapore starting direct flights back to the U.S., and that'll be in the end of 2016. So that's going to be to San Francisco, Singapore. They're going to open that one back.
Yeah, and that's exciting. So first of all, the flights that Singapore operates to the U.S. are Fifth Freedom routes for the most part. There's a Singapore flight from Frankfurt, and so it is possible to redeem Singapore and get to North America or get to the U.S., but now we've got a super long haul Singapore Airlines flight from Singapore to San Francisco. And no exact date set for when the route is going to start, but looks like sometime at the end of 2016. So certainly some additional opportunity. And in particular, Singapore's own flights have great award rates compared to flying on their partners when using KrisFlyer miles. So, AJ and I talked earlier this year about my flight from Sao Paulo to Barcelona. The Fifth Freedom route there is dramatically cheaper because it's operated all on Singapore metal. So if you're looking to go from Asia, now there's a Singapore flight that connects in Seoul and also one that connects in Hong Kong, but there's also a direct flight that's that's going to happen towards the end of the year. So good news for folks looking to use points in particular on those routes.
Next one we've got up is an exciting one. We've got United has an award sale to Europe, and it's going to be, what is this, 22,500 points for a one-way. So that's going to bring it up to 45K. So that would be 25% off for a round trip to Europe. But we've got some select dates here. You've got to book within a certain window, and you can, so you've got to book between June 20th and June 28th. So only have a few more days to book this. And you can travel between August 23rd through March 31st, 2017. And there are some blackout dates. So we've got December 15th to January 8th. So if you
Christmas
have like New Year's
seasons,
plans,
not going to happen.
Christmas, New Year's, but not bad. And the final caveat of this is it's only valid for travel on United Airlines, not their partners. So this would not be Lufthansa. This would not be any other Star Alliance partner.
Very good. And one thing, I don't know how consistent this is in terms of like whether the taxes and fees stay relatively low, but just spot checking, taking a look at a couple of these options, it looks like there's potential to have taxes and fees be as low as the absolute minimum $5.60 on these routes. I don't know if that's a glitch or whether it's just sort of the way United is pricing. They don't pass on fuel surcharges. So it's one of the scenarios where with United miles, you can block fuel surcharges and not be exposed to those. Again, it's less relevant here because these award discounts are only on United operated flights. But, you know, certainly it besides British Airways on some select routes where you're flying direct, this for the time being is going to be the cheapest way to get back and forth from the US to Europe. I think British Airways and then that Singapore Airlines flight from New York to Frankfurt are the two cheapest ways. And then right after that comes United.
So we've got another buy miles promotion, and this is with SPG. They're selling points at a 30% discount. So what the prices would look like this is for 20,000 points, you get 20,000 points for $490. And the thing that makes this a little bit more valuable than it may seem is the transfer bonus. When you transfer 20,000 star points to one of their partners, an airline, you get an additional 5,000 points. So really, if you buy 40,000 points for $980, you end up getting 50,000 air miles with whichever program you want to transfer to. And in contrast with the American promotion, this takes us to 1.96 cents per point. However, the nice thing about this is you don't have to fork over $4,000, $2,000, $3,000 to get below 2 cents per point.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're looking at possibly buying a lot of points and you would transfer to American, if you're doing the Starwood route, it makes sense to just buy directly from American because you're going to get a purchase bonus on cards that reward travel or airfare, and you're looking at like 1.75 cents per point. But if you're not looking to buy hundreds of thousands of miles and you just need a few, maybe you need 25,000 extra to complete this reservation, this could be a super reasonable way to do it. And again, just like what we were talking about earlier today, you can probably get buy for less than $1,000, you can get a round trip to South America. Now, get a one-way in business class or a round trip. That could be attractive depending on where you're going. Like you said, like places far south like Argentina can be kind of expensive. There's also been some mistake fares that have been really reasonable to lots of places as well. So certainly do your homework first, but a nice opportunity and worth paying attention to. The other thing that's at least worth considering here is that there's an opportunity to stack this promotion with Starwood with an offer that British Airways has, which is an additional bonus of 35% for transferred points. So for the most part, this is just with British Airways hotel partners. I think it might also apply to Ultimate Rewards. I'm not 100% sure, so we're going to put the link with all the details on the BA offer as well. But the bottom line is, for sure, if you transfer star points to British Airways, you're going to get an additional 35% for those transferred points, which brings the price of a BA point using this Starwood stack with the transfer bonus from BA down to 1.45 cents per point. I think that's actually still a pretty bad deal. On average, across hundreds of redemptions with BA, our premium customers and people that like our award team is booked for are still only getting like between 1.4 and 1.6 cents per point on British Airways redemptions. So, mileage may vary. There's definitely good opportunities here. And in fact, we're going to mention in the next article, one new way that you might be able to use British Airways. But again, worth mentioning, if you're thinking about using British Airways points and are a little bit short, it might make more sense to buy Starwood and transfer that way and generate some extra points with that 35% BA bonus.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Man, so what we've got coming up here is really, really, really exciting news for award travel enthusiasts, man. We can use our points to somewhere that we had not been able to use them before. It looks like this is going to be coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, so it's possible now actually to redeem Advantage miles, American Airlines miles to Cuba. And so I had tried to do this way back when I wanted to plan a flight to Cuba, and just found out that no U.S. airline at all was allowing award redemptions to Cuba. And it looks like American has taken the lead here. So it's $15,000 each way, but at least using American miles at this point, you have to book a round trip. And there are some questions that they're sort of asking. So first of all, you can't book this on the website yet. So you need to call to book the ticket. And there's a few stipulations here. You can't start in Cuba, so you can't book a round trip from Cuba to the U.S. and back. It has to start in the U.S. The trip's got to be less than 90 days, which is the visa. And there are still only 12 approved categories of reasons why you can go to Cuba. So you need to essentially state that you're part of one of those reasons. There's no like proof scenario where you have to like show that you're actually going for that reason, but you need to self-certify that you're going for one of the approved reasons using miles, 30,000 round trip from anywhere in the contiguous United States. So the lower 48, you can get there for 30,000 round trip. You should also be aware that there are saver awards that could be as low as 25. And then the last thing here is that also British Airways miles are possible to use on this route. So American has a flight from Miami to Cuba, and it's now possible to redeem your British Airways miles. And interestingly, despite the prohibition on the 4,500 awards, way back in February, they basically eliminated the super short awards and raised the price to 7,500 Avios points. And that only affected North America. So like if you're flying from Detroit to New York, it used to be 4,500. Now it's 75. And the rest of the world, the super short flights stayed at 45. For whatever reason, possibly a glitch, British Airways is pricing flights from Miami to Havana at that 4,500 mark. So if you're looking to fly from somewhere far away in the U.S., like Los Angeles or Washington or something, American miles probably make sense. However, if you're looking to fly from the southern United States, or particularly from Miami, British Airways is only going to be 9,000 miles round trip. And they also seem to have a little bit less red tape. They're British and don't have a problem with Cuba historically like the U.S., so they're not asking about your reason, and they don't care if you book a one-way. So a little bit more flexibility, and if you're able to get to Miami to position, much better mileage rates than the American offer right now.
Yeah, kind of funny how they keep us guessing on that stuff. We're just kind of talking shit about British Airways a couple minutes ago now.
I know, man. It's if somebody is just listening for the first time, they're like, these guys are so inconsistent. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. But frankly, it just depends so much on where you want to go, what you want to do. So anyways, thanks. That's going to wrap us up for the news and updates. Again, show notes for the episode, including links mentioned in the interview, which we're going to get to in just a second, are at abroaders.com/mimic. Anything else, AJ?
Man, that's all I got for you. Next week, I will report back with any key learnings and key takeaways from my time in Madrid.
Awesome. Let's get to the interview. All right, so for today's show, I have my close friend, Idahosa Ness. He's the founder of Mimic Method and was actually one of the first guests. I believe you actually were the first guest on the Abroaders podcast all the way back in February of 2014. And so we're here together in Barcelona. Idahosa's in town for the Dynamite Circle conference here. And we had a chance to catch up and talk business. So today we're going to talk a little bit about building a team and also about working on a location independent basis, but being able to coordinate with other people that are around the world. So first of all, thanks, man, for coming back and joining for another episode.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me in this luxury studio.
Yeah, it's really solid. We've got an apartment here in Barcelona. Three of us, George, AJ, and I, are working on the Abroaders project, and it's a really nice spot actually. Like I really like where we are, but it's cozy. Cozy for sure. There's
in a good way.
Not a ton of extra space, but makes for great audio recording. Not too many walls to bounce off. Anyway, so I guess let's start out with a quick rundown for people that didn't hear the first episode. Tell me what Mimic Method is.
Sure. So the Mimic Method is my language learning philosophy, but it's also our business. And what we do in our business is we create online courses for language learners to improve their pronunciation, hearing, and speaking. And we have courses in multiple languages: Spanish, French, Portuguese, German, English, etc. And what makes us different from everyone else is our focus on sound, pronunciation, and also our focus on like the human element of language learning. So compared to everyone else, it's very like, oh, what's our conjugations and these are my flashcards. Very kind of robotic and inhumane approach, like we like to say. So we bring the humanity back to it, and we're like, okay, what are you really trying to accomplish? You want to learn French so you can like write a medieval novel in French, or do you just want to be able to talk to the cute girl or the nice guy in French at the bar kind of thing?
Exactly.
So that's the kind of philosophy we start with, and that's what's behind all the courses and products and innovations we bring out.
Very cool. And so I guess another thing, just for some context, back when I was trying to learn Portuguese, you were at the very beginning of this. We met all the way back in 2011 or 2010 in Rio, and I remember that you were just sort of working out how this method worked. And one of the most exciting things for me coming away from hanging out with you in Rio for a couple of weeks is I came back with all of this Portuguese music, all of this like content that I was actually really excited to study in Portuguese. And before, it was such a daunting task coming from the process of having learned Spanish the way that I could probably write a really bad still, but very, like medieval style Don Quixote book. I had all this like extra baggage of grammar and all this shit that I didn't care about. And I had in my head totally put that block up that that's the way I had to learn Portuguese too. And so like, you're like, no, check out this Heil da Rima. And oh, by the way, I'm going to this rap freestyle thing in the park if you want to come. And suddenly I had all this extra material that I could just listen to music and get way faster progress towards the goal that I had of being able to talk to people.
Yeah.
So the courses, the way they work is you actually use music to a big extent to help people practice the sounds that they're going to need for everyday communication.
Yeah, music is a huge part of our kind of training for two reasons. First is purely kind of technical and practical. And the idea is that speaking and pronunciation is a physical process. Mm-hmm. And therefore, in order for you to build the muscle memory, you need to do a lot of repetition. And the only context in which repetition is not like mind-numbingly boring is music. Because you think about what is the music, it's just like it's just a repetitive thing, right?
Yeah.
But so what we did, and this is when I met you in Brazil in 2010, that's when I first had the idea for this. I saw people were really struggling with accent, pronunciation. And I was learning a lot of Brazilian music at the time. So I was able to kind of like put the two together and be like, oh, snap, if we get like a Portuguese song, slow it down, have you learn each syllable the way you would learn like a note on the piano or a violin or something, and you do that over and over again, all of a sudden you can now speak Portuguese without tripping over your tongue and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that's where our courses do. We take songs or we take normal phrases and kind of like, put it to a metronome and help you get into the flow of it and really get in those repetitions for you to go out on the street. And then once again, when you want to connect with people, you now are not blocked by the like je voulais parler, it's like it comes out smooth like bonjour, je voulais parler like yeah. So yeah.
Well, the other thing about music is, and I have to say, number one, I still remember
so many words. I remember exactly what song I learned that made me realize how that word worked. And it's especially useful because music is often very poetic. There's a lot of opportunities for play on words or things to not be quite said in the literal sense, and you have to do a little bit more exploring if you actually want to know what the song means. And that was huge for me to, like, I can still think of what song I was listening to or how I learned some components of Portuguese that now come out like second nature. And it's also like a frequency list. You know, like songs are about the most important stuff in life. There's always songs about meeting new people and about some of the basic challenges that are going to make things. Not so many songs about ordering at restaurants and where's the bathroom and stuff. But if you're trying to like meet girls or meet guys, like the things in normal life.
Yeah, and I guess the second point of why we use music, because once again, we're trying to focus on the human and emotional components. And if you think about it, like universally in the world, like two things of culture that we all have is language and music. Like there's no culture that's like, oh yeah, we just never made a song before. Yeah. And music has a strong emotional component in our brains. So like you said, you can remember like the exact moment and like location you were when you first learned this song. I had the same thing.
Yep.
And and that gives you a stronger emotional investment in the language. And that's why people like our stuff, because we just bring more like flavor and vibe
something
to the whole
different,
experience.
and it's badly needed in the musical or the language learning environment.
Yeah.
So let's tell me a little bit about how Mimic Method has changed in the last 2.5 years. You've gone a long way since we last talked.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm trying to remember where I was even at, like, geographically in February 2014. Like, I can't give you an answer right now. But, yeah, definitely on a business point of view, we've come a long way. You know, I'm probably closer to between double and triple, like, revenue-wise where we're at that time. But aside from that, too, just kind of whole new directions and where we're going. I had a phase probably during that time when I was going the wrong direction, focusing on like kind of more vanity things and like more kind of like, we're focusing on like a big focus on technology and stuff like that. And where I got involved in different projects that weren't really affecting the bottom line the way they should have been. But through networking, through reading lots of things, through talking to customers, we kind of got back to our core base and started kind of narrowing down our focus. And that's really what's led to our growth in the past, especially like half year.
Okay, very cool. And one of the things I really wanted to dive into a little bit more is you're now at the point where it's no longer a one-man operation. I mean, I know that even at the beginning you had, people that were helping out. AJ and I have from the very beginning had a small team of VAs or like contractors that helped us just get like some of the bulk stuff done. But now you're at a point where you've got traction with the business. You've built out a product that lots of people like and can benefit from. And now you're more focused, it seems, on building a core team that can help you take things to the next level. And I think that's super exciting. I mean, it's one thing, there's all these great websites where if you need somebody to edit a video or build a web page or something like that, you can get that done. But the point where you start transitioning to try and recruit people that are also passionate about the mission, that they care about what the company's doing and that want to try and help you take it to the next level, I think that's a really exciting point to be at in a business. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy going forward and who you're adding to the team to try and achieve those goals.
Sure. Actually, I remember, I think you were there with me. We saw Criollo in Rio.
Yeah.
Like one of our favorite Brazilian musicians. And like at the show, at the end of it, he just spends the whole time thanking all the people who like helped him out. And he's like, and I remember it very clearly, he said, "Ninguém faz nada sozinho," meaning like no one does anything alone.
Yep.
And I remember that really stuck with me because I had just made my first hire around that time, I think. And it was just game changing for me because trying to do everything as a solopreneur, I have huge weaknesses in like critical areas of execution that has been like the bane of my existence since I was 18. I'm like trying all these different hacks to improve my productivity. And when it comes to just like, especially ground level details of execution, I just burn out very easily. I get super frustrated, super lazy, and then I'd hate myself and I get depressed. And then I hired this guy who was the opposite of me and like very good at like, consistently disciplined getting things done and but not so strong in like the things that I was strong in. So the combination of those powers is one of the major breakthroughs, not just in my business, but in my life. And kind of shift my focus away from trying to make myself Superman and instead make myself part of the A team,
Make yourself in the
Mr.
role
T,
that you're most comfortable in. I always admired that about you and some of the other solopreneurs that I know that founded a company sort of on their own and then start to build a team. AJ and I began this from the very beginning as partners, and so I always had one other high-level person to just bounce ideas off, to tell me I was wrong, to fight about shit with, to try and figure stuff out. And I always thought that was AJ and I are also really different people, and I know that that's benefited us a lot. That eventually we kind of settled into the areas of like, I'm obsessive compulsive, attention to detail. AJ's more big picture, lots of different ideas, and can take things in new directions. So I think getting that chemistry of an A team or an executive team that all has an area where they can contribute is super cool.
Yeah, for sure. So that's where we're at now. So 2015 was last year. Yeah. All right, so 2015, I had that. Now I have over a full year experience with my first like true hire. And to be clear, I had virtual assistants and people through Upwork before that for since like very early on. But that was always like, okay, make a list of like SOPs or operating procedures and like send them an email, and they charge by hour, etc. And then this guy Mike I brought in was the first person who was like, I'm paying a salary, and their performance is tied to like these goals, and we're partners in the project. So that was such a great experience for me that in 2016, I made the decision that like 2016 is the year that I learned teams and team dynamic and how it works to have multiple people, because I had hired other people like that, but I was working with them on one-to-one. So I had a side project, and I hired this girl from England, and she like managed this whole thing for me, but I was one-to-one with her and one-to-one with the other guys. And now I'm like, how about we bring people together? Obviously, that's something that the bigger companies do, have people collaborating. It's not just a top-down approach. I don't know how any of that stuff works. So
definitely something you gotta kind of feel out and learn as you go.
So I was like, all right, let me bring on some more people and just see what happens. And and through those experiences and through reading a lot, I've come a long way on that. Still have an infinite amount of progress to go, but now I am confident with like a basic framework that we can dive into if you want. Yeah. And
Well, that definitely makes sense. I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the decision to move the team and collaborate, work together in Budapest, because that was something that was absolutely critical for us. For a long time, AJ and I were working. One of us was in the US, one of us was in Brazil. When we hired George, he was in the UK or in Asia for a big part of it, and trying to communicate about all that stuff over Skype and just keep everybody engaged and like working towards the same common goal was really challenging. So you've decided to assemble your team in Budapest for the summer and work on those projects in person.
Yeah. So what happened was the first guy I hired, we were collaborating digitally and like getting stuff done, but maybe at a slower pace. And then for the first time I met him, we were actually in Chile, and we worked together for like a solid like 6 weeks in person. And things went way faster. And I was like, so working in the same, co-located as they call it, is just categorically better in terms of speed and velocity of getting things done, of people being on the same page. What happens, you find a lot is you both agree to something on like a Skype meeting and then can reconvene a week later, but realizing that you both had like slightly different ideas of what you're supposed to be doing. And that is natural in human communication, but if you're right next to the person, you see he's on his MacBook doing some other stuff that he's not supposed to be doing, like, yo, you should be doing that. Like, oh, I thought you said this. No, I said this. Oh, okay, got it. And then, and then you readjust course and get back on much faster.
Yeah.
So the way I think about it is like being in person is always better in terms of like getting stuff done. However, there is a lot of advantages to doing distributed. The main one being that you have access to a larger talent pool. So you put a job out there and you say, hey, you have to be in Budapest. Not many people have that flexibility. Right. However, if you're like, hey, work from home, then all of a sudden you have the whole world as your talent pool, and you can find some really great candidates that way. So what we've been kind of experimenting with recently is having these periods that we call on-site mode. Yep. So for like a three to whatever month period, we're all in one place. We're in Ho Chi Minh at the beginning of this year. And we're going to Budapest starting next week. So there'll be 4 of us in Budapest, and we're working on these more creative growth projects. And then when we disperse again, we're now officially in what we call distributed mode. We try to set less ambitious goals during this period, but still keep on track. And then the key is having a really structured kind of meeting system and collaboration system, fixed schedules, not relying too much on like, oh, we'll schedule next time. Like before we left Ho Chi Minh, we sat down and scheduled each of our meetings up until we're until next week. So a solid like 2 months of meetings, and went through everyone's travel and all that kind of stuff. And we also had these kind of follow-up things where Fridays we submit screencasts, updating ourselves on our goals and stuff. So I used to be like kind of annoyed by working virtually because things would always kind of get unorganized. People would fall out of sync with each other. But over time, we've been developing these systems that actually make it way more structured. So yeah, now I'm actually a bit more optimistic on the potential of just working with people who you never actually meet in person. But that being said, it's still good to, I know a lot of people have different structures, and everyone seems to agree that it's good to have at least once a year that you gather with your team and like build like trust and comfort and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's a good mix, man. I mean, like we definitely value being able to be in different places. Like, I mean, certainly for AJ and I, it's a huge benefit, and part of the reason why we started Broaders is to have that freedom to live and work anywhere. And a lot of the people I think that we attracted to work as part of our team were excited about that idea of, having location independence, being able to work from anywhere. And, I've actually been really surprised by how good people do with that amount of flexibility. I think we've been lucky, we've hired some really great people. But, there's this sort of dogma that like, you can't get as much stuff done without an office and without that setup. And I think that this hybrid model of, us being here in Barcelona for the summer, we're probably going to disperse after that for a little while, hopefully learn a little bit from you guys and be even more efficient in the time. And, for us, it's also sort of like, this is the time for being visionaries and really figuring out the direction and what needs to be done next to help people travel hack and help people save more money on travel. And then when we go out and go our separate ways, I envision us to be at a point where it's much more about the execution of just like everybody knows what's got to be done. There's a lot of work to do. And if you got, a nice mix of structure and back and forth between on-site and disperse, I think it can be a really nice model that isn't quite as soul-crushing as having an office in Cleveland, Ohio.
It could be worse for sure, yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Well, before you go, I want to ask you a little bit about your travel hacking. So you were one of my first travel hacking friends, and we did a couple of trips together. And so I'm always curious, just kind of what's changed for you, and sort of how your points collecting and redeeming schemes have been going.
Sure. Well, first I'll autocorrect travel hacking friend to travel hacking protege, because Master Erik, he taught me everything I know. And I probably said it in the last podcast, but I still remember very clearly. I was in Montreal, like at my desk, and I was like, Erik, what's all this travel hacking nonsense? I had no money at the time. I wanted to go to Brazil, and he was like, all right, listen to me. It was like Neo in the Matrix, and you're like Morpheus, and you're like, do what I say, and I will get you to Brazil for under $50. And I was like, okay. And then I applied for the credit cards right there on the phone, and then lo and behold, I was back in Brazil on a $5 ticket from New York several months later. So that's my testimonial. And since then, that's back 2012 that you got me on it. Since then, still, hacking and macking. Around the world, where I can't even keep track of where I've been recently, but with my girlfriend this past 2 months, just left her a couple of days ago. She's traveling on her own. But we went from Ho Chi Minh to Japan, checked out Osaka, Tokyo, then from there to Houston, to the Beyonce concert. Actually, I mean, whatever. I was like a gift to her, and then went from Houston, Austin. Actually, drove to New Orleans, then flew from New Orleans to Pennsylvania to visit my family. Checked out some stuff in the East Coast, and then finally New York to Barcelona, and that's where I flew a couple of days ago. And then we're gonna do Barcelona. Then I'm gonna be in France, and then Budapest, and then I'm done with the travel game for a while, and it's gonna settle down in Budapest. But yeah, most of what I said to you there was all done on points, and yeah, it's great. It's great having a business for sure, because a lot of like the really lucrative, this free mile churning hacks from the past are, as far as I know, not available. But it kind of worked out perfectly for me, where as those things started to peter off, business expenses started to go up in my business. So now I'm still able to like keep up and like generate a good deal of points, purely off of my business and personal expenses.
Very cool. Yeah, I think, one thing about the style of travel that both you and I and AJ are on is certainly it's really hard to string together that type of an itinerary using round trip tickets that you buy. You know, like the one-way frequent flyer awards are the most amazing thing ever. And I was actually looking through our stats recently, and I saw that like 70% of the tickets that we've booked are actually one-ways. Now, lots of them are for people that actually wanted a round trip and we just booked the other way back with a different type of miles or whatever. But having that flexibility, there's a lot of them that are like, oh, I want to fly into Barcelona and I want to fly home from Rome. And like, you know, I can take the train in between or whatever. So it definitely lends itself to a pretty flexible, pretty open style of travel. AJ and I are looking at going back to the U.S. For a short stop before coming back to Barcelona. And there's some good items as well. Like right now, just, you know, seems like as much as there's a lot of doom and gloom in travel hacking of like, oh, the old opportunities are gone, there's still these new ones that just keep popping up all the time. And so it's a cool time. I think it's definitely going to be a really productive next 3 or 4 years of earning and redeeming miles.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool, man. Well, thanks a ton for coming back and joining.
Thanks for having me on.
Best of luck, man.
You too, bro.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all you guys for joining us once again. If you do want some extra help with picking the right cards or planning your next trip using points, I highly encourage you guys to check out the free trial of the Abroaders membership. We're going to help you pick the exact set of reward cards and the sign-up offers that are going to get you your first trip. And you can do all that for free because we're giving you a free month, and that's plenty of time to get all that stuff organized. And so you can check that out. Again, show notes page is abroaders.com/mimic. This week's international jam is a hip-hop duo from Sacramento, California called Blackalicious. The track is called Alphabet Aerobics, and it's a suggestion from a good friend of mine, Kevin Black. So thanks a lot, Kevin, for sharing this jam. I hope you guys enjoy as well. AJ and I will be back to join you once again next week, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard. Wherever you are, travel safe.
The canopies collapsing, detonator, diamond tank, daily doing dope. Demonstrations, Don Dada on the down low. Eating other editors with each and every energetic, epileptic episode, elevated etiquette. Furious, fat, fabulous, fantastic. Flurries of funk felt feeding the fanatics. Gift got great global.
Hey, brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.
I'm kindling all kinds of King Kong, karate kick type Brits in my kingdom. Let me live a long life. Lyrically, lessons is learn lame louses, just lose to my leverage. My mind makes marvelous moves, masses. Marvel and move, many mock what I've mastered. Niggas nap knowing I'm nice naturally. Mac never lack, make noise nationally. Operation opposition off, not optional. Out of sight, out of mind, widening opticals, perfected poems. Powerful punchlines, pummeling, petty powder puffs.